Hey there, Stampers. This is Sherry Roth with Stamped Treasures. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I've got a super fun project to share with you today. And we are going to be using products from the Floral Charm collection from Stampin' Up! This collection can be found in the online exclusive section of the Stampin' Up! Website, and it includes this beautiful Charming Day floral set, some great floral images, fabulous greetings that you'll use over and over and over. And then is a die set where these line art images cut out the stamped images, and then there are some complementary dies in there to add to the versatility of the bundle. We are going to use the coordinating DSP, which is called Floral Charm, and it is a very florally DSP. So side A has flowers on it, and then side B is kind of two-toned, kind of more muted patterns. So if I flip it over, you can see the floral patterns and then the more muted patterns here. There is only 5 sheets here. There is 6 sheets in the paper pack, or 12 sheets, 2 of each. But this pattern was my favorite, and I've used 2 full sheets of this pattern to create this fun folio, which I did not too long ago. And I will link to this, and I'll share a peek at it afterwards as well, in case you missed that video. So we are going to use pieces of this pattern paper, and then we are going to play with Stampin' Up's flip flaps. So flip flaps actually are intended to be used for memory keeping. However, they're not limited to just memory keeping. So you can add these either to the top of your page protectors to include more photos, or inside on your actual pages to include more photos as well. So I have used these a ton. I absolutely love them. I was so excited when Stampin' Up! Started carrying them. But we are going to use them to create a fun shaker tag, actually 2 fun shaker tags. So this is what we're going to create today. This is a fun use for them. I have used them in card making as well, and I will link to a previous video that I shared where I did, I believe, a couple projects using them. So I'll link to that in the description below. All right, now our flip flaps come in a few different sizes. You can get a package of 4x6 where you will get half the package that have the seal down the long edge, and half the package where you get the seal down the short edge. We have 4x4 pockets. We have 3x4. Again, you'll get a mix of top seal and side seal. And then we have a package of 3x3 as well. All right, so there's lots of options for this. You can create what I'm going to share today in any of those sizes, using whether it's top or side seal, it doesn't matter. All right, so we're going to start with a small little one. So I've got a 3x4 pocket. This one happens to have the seal down the side. Doesn't matter if it does. I've got a 3x4 piece of DSP. Again, don't worry about the measurements. I will link to the blog post that corresponds with this project. And in that blog post, you'll find photos of the projects as well as all the measurements so that you can recreate them. All right. And then I've got a larger piece of white that's going to go in the back so that we can actually write a message on the tag so that it's useful. All right. And we're going to do some stamping on this white piece. So for this one, we're going to use the smaller flower. Just going to stamp that on there like that. And we're going to color it in, kind of mimicking the colors that are on this. I'm going to use a combination of light pecan pie and dark crumb cake. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of dark pecan just up the middle and at the base of each of these leaves. And then I'll take my my dark crumb cake. And I actually think that this color is darker than the pecan. So we're going to reverse this. We're going to add the dark here. So I would normally use my light and dark crumb cake. However, my crumb cake light has run out of ink. So I'm waiting on a replacement. So there's not a whole lot of difference in these 2 colors, but it was the closest that I could come up with. All right, so I'm leaving a little bit of white space. I really like it when there's a little bit of white space on my images. And I'm going over where I added the dark as well, just to ensure that it's nicely blended. I really encourage you to play when if you're new to Stampin' Blends or you haven't mastered it, just play and figure out what works for you. There is really no right or wrong way. When I first started coloring with blends, I colored the whole thing with light and then added my shading with dark and went back and blended with the light. And that worked really well. But I noticed that my light markers, I was running out of ink so much faster than my dark. So I started playing around, and I find this works really well for me. So here I use Lemon Lolly, both light and dark, on the inside of the flower. And then for the flower petals, I'm going to use a combination of light Berry Burst. And again, just like the leaf, I'm just going to do a little bit at the base and up the center of each one of these petals. And then I'm going to take some dark fresh freesia and go up a little higher. So I'm just pulling that color up just a little bit. And then I'll finish coloring in with light. Now, I am no expert at doing this. This is just, I like the look of my images when I do it this way. There are much better people who color. There are people who color much better than I do and can show you different techniques or share different techniques on what they do. I think it's really just all about what you like. And again, I'm leaving a little bit of a white space, and I'm going over the previous colors that I've colored in, because that helps blend all of the colors together. So I'm going over that dark Berry Burst, the dark fresh freesia, and just blending all those colors so you don't have any harsh transitions. There we go. All right. And then we will take the coordinating die for this, which is this die here, and we're going to die cut that. So I've got one that's already die cut. And then I have also die cut this leaf image from some crumb cake cardstock. Now, if you look closely at this cardstock, the cardstock actually has some texture to it, because I was out in Hinton with a bunch of friends crafting, and I didn't have a piece of crumb cake cardstock with me, so I asked to borrow a piece, and somebody had a piece that had already been embossed that they weren't using. So this has been embossed with the exposed brick embossing folder, and then I went ahead and cut the leaf die, and I love the texture that adds. Just a little bit of texture added to that. It's so fun. All right, so now we are going to take this piece and we're going to open our pocket. So you want it so that this adhesive side is going to go to the back. All right, so your pocket is actually at the back, and that's where you want it. So we're going to slide this in. We're going to push it all the way, and then we're going to add some sequins. Now, you can add several different things. For this one, I'm going to use some loose gold sequins, which is something that we currently carry. You could also add, we have something called the loose shaker elements. You could add those. So these have a variety of things. There's some stars in there. There's some little cylinders. It's just a fun little iridescent kind of shaker package. Maybe you've got some itty bitty bouquet mix left over. These are not something that we carry anymore, but maybe you've got some of that or some other sequins. Really anything that is small and relatively flat that you would put in a shaker card. All right, so we're going to take some of this and we're going to pour it in here. And that's probably a little bit. That's probably still a little bit too much. Depends on how much shaker you want. I think that's a good amount. So we'll cover that over so that we don't spill it. And then what we're going to do, we're going to flip this over, and there's no adhesive on this side. So we do need to add adhesive. And I am going to use tear and tape. Tear and tape does work best for this because any of our roll-on adhesive, because it's plastic, it doesn't roll on very well. So, and I'm just going to burnish that with my finger, make sure it's on there nice and adhered on there. Peel off the backing, and then I'm going to fold this over. Okay, and actually, all right, so I'm going to fold it over so that it folds over and lines up with the actual side of the pocket. And then I'll push that down. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Don't worry about this piece. We're going to peel that off and you won't notice that. So I've got that on there like that. There is our shaker element. So you can turn around, you can add this to a card front if you want, but we're going to create a tag out of it. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this white piece. This white piece has been cut so that it's just slightly larger than this pocket. And we're going to, actually we're going to keep it like that. I'm going to clean this stamp. And we're going to bring in some Berry Burst ink. I'm going to stamp this right in the corner here. All right. Now I need to wipe that. Let me grab a tissue here. I don't want to get ink on my next project. And then I'm just going to take a black Sharpie pen. This is my absolute favorite pen. I love this pen. I use it for journaling on my scrapbook layouts. I use it to write in my planner. I use it all the time. And I'm just freehand drawing a line. I'm not too worried about it being perfectly straight. If you want it to be perfectly straight, you can use a ruler. I just want it to have a little bit more of a whimsical feel, and there is a lot of white space on here. So I feel like this just adds to it. And it still gives us a lot of space so that we can write a message. All right, now we're going to flip this over. We're going to flip this over. We'll peel this off. And we're going to add some more tear and tape. And I'm going to be pretty generous with my tear and tape. I don't want this tag to fall apart. So you just want to make sure that the tear and tape is behind where your pattern paper is. So I'm not going right up to the edge. And we'll do a piece down the middle. All right. Now I just use my fingernail. You can use a bone folder to burnish it. Just want to make sure that that's really adhered on there. Then we'll bring back our take your pick tool, or not your take your pick tool. You could use your take your pick tool. I have a couple different spots in my craft space where I have my tools, and where I film my videos, I've got a little caddy here. And this is the paper piercing tool that I have in that caddy. My take your pick tool is over where I craft. Okay, so now we'll flip that over, and we're going to center this on this piece of white. So, right about like that. Okay, and then when we flip it over, we've got a spot where we can write a message. And then we need to punch a hole. So I'm going to bring in my crocodile. We've got a piece of cardstock, a piece of DSP, and 2 pieces of plastic that we are punching through. So notice that there's a little bit of cardstock in here. Let's poke that out. So I find the crocodile works really well. You can punch through using a regular punch as well. And I'm just going to eyeball this, make sure it's kind of in the center. You can mark it if you're worried about it being perfectly centered. This is a homemade project. Nothing needs to be perfect when you create a homemade project. Okay, make sure that that is out of there. And then I've got a piece of this beautiful fresh freesia, I think it's fresh freesia, velvet ribbon. It is so soft. Now, we've carried velvet ribbon in the past, and I found it very stiff. and difficult to use. This is really soft and pliable. It's so pretty. So I'm going to feed that through. So I folded it in half, fed it through, and then I'm going to feed it up, feed both ends through that loop. And one of our pieces is twisted here. We'll just turn it around. And there we've got that. Now we can decorate the front. So I've got, and I actually meant to do this before I added it, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got a partial circle cut with the stylish shape circles. You don't need a full one because it's going to hang off the edge. So I just used a scrap piece of cardstock that I had and cut out what I could out of it. I'm just going to trim it so it's a little bit smaller. So this is about just shy of 2 inches. And we're going to adhere this on here. Because we're sticking it on plastic, again, I'm going to use my tear and tape. So I'll just add a couple pieces of tear and tape on here. And we'll peel off the backing. And this is going to get lined up right with the edge of that plastic piece. Okay, so that's going to go on there. So pretty. And then I'm going to grab my brown blending brush, and I don't need to re-ink this. I just want a nice soft background. I'm just going to add just a little bit of brown on there. So you can use crumb cake ink if you don't have enough color on here. But if you've got a brown brush, there's likely enough color on there. And then we're going to take this. This is going to go on here. Actually, before we do this, we're going to use a little bit of linen thread. So I've got that. I'm going to grab my Stampin' Seal, add a little bit of adhesive on here. This is how I like to do this. So just add a little bit of Stampin' Seal on there. I'm going to take my linen thread and just do like a figure 8. Kind of around like this. And this just is a great way to add just a little something in behind your projects. Now this is very twisty, but that's okay. It'll sit flatter once we add our focal point on there. We'll trim that. And now we're going to add our leaf. And I'm just going to use some multi-purpose glue on my leaf. And that's going to go right on there. So if you are loving this project and you create something similar, make sure that you share it with me. Tag me at Stamped Treasures, whether you're on Instagram or on Facebook. I would love to see what you're creating or how you use this idea. And if you love this collection, this is also the collection that I am using for this month's Class to Go. And at the time of filming this video, registration is still open. I will post a link to where you can find all the details. And if it's after the class, the tutorial will be available to purchase. So I will link to where you can find that as well. All right, and there we go. There is a fun little shaker tag using one of Stampin' Up's flip flaps. Now, I chose to not add a greeting to this one so that I can use it as a thank you gift. I can use it as a birthday gift. I can use it for pretty much anything. So it's easy enough that you can add a greeting across here, or you can just simply specify your greeting in the description or in your message in the back. All right, so there is project number 1. Now project number 2, we're going to use one of our 4x6. So we're basically going to repeat that process. We're just going to use a different pattern paper. So I am using this pattern, and we're going to slide it in. We're going to do it so that we have the more muted pattern on the front. Okay, so we're going to slide that in. So remember, your pocket should be at the back. And this time I'm going to use some of this itty bitty bouquet mix. So this is something that's retired. Stampin' Up doesn't carry it anymore, but there is some berry burst and some blue in here and some clear. So I thought that this would be perfect. And I don't have a ton left, so I thought it would be a great way to kind of use some of this. I might actually even just dump it all in Might as well use it up. I'm all about finishing up my supplies. Love to be able to do that. It feels good to just empty an embellishment container, finish off a roll of ribbon. Let's add every last one of these sequins in here. It'll be full of sequins. And look at that, it's done. Yay! All right, and then we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna seal this. So tear and tape. That way we don't have to worry about anything falling out while we're working on the rest of our tag. All right. Peel off the backing there. And then I'm going to fold it over. And pinch it down. Like that. And there is a simple shaker card. Like I said, you can turn around and add that to a larger card front, and it's so much easier than a traditional way to do a shaker card. All right, so we've got that. Now what we're going to do is we are going to, okay, so this is for the back. So we're going to take this nice, beautiful, big floral. And I think for this one, yeah, we're going to use Berry Burst again. Okay, and this time I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper, just so I don't get my glass mat all marked up. We're going to set that aside. We're going to do some stamping on that. And again, you will find all of the measurements in the blog post that coordinates with this video. I will link that in the description. I will also have a full supply list in the description as well. So we're going to stamp that on there, and then we're going to re-ink it. Close that up, and we'll stamp this up here. So we've got some nice pattern in the background. And then we are going to also stamp. So I'm just going to stamp off here, get most of that ink off of there. And then I'm going to ink it with some Memento ink. This is a larger stamp, so I do like to go upside down. We're going to stamp this on here. Let's see, how are we going to, let's do it this way. Okay, and then we're also going to stamp Happy Birthday. And we will stamp that going across like that. Okay. Now for coloring this in, I'm actually not going to color this in because I colored it in the same way as I did this one. I'm just going to share the colors that I used. So this is what it's going to look like when you color it in. So I chose to color my leaves in with blue. So this is Night of Navy. I used light and dark Night of Navy Stampin' Blends. And then my flower is colored in with the same colors that I colored the previous flower in. So light Berry Burst and light and dark Fresh Freesia. So that's how I colored those in. So you can see there, I left a little bit of white space. I left a little bit of white space around the tips of my petals. And then I used the coordinating die to die cut that. I also fussy cut the Happy Birthday. So that is done just to speed up the video. And now we're ready to start assembling. So I'm going to flip this over, and then I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to add my adhesive to the back of this. So first we'll peel this off. And then add tear and tape just like we did before. Across here, across here, across there, and then across the middle. Okay, I'll use my finger or a bone folder to kind of burnish that, make sure that that's stuck on there nicely. And paper piercing tool to peel off. So these could be added to a gift bag. You could add these to a wrapped gift. So you could have ribbon wrapping around your gift, and then instead of adding your ribbon through here, you could put the ribbon through there and tie the tag on. Okay, so that's going to go on here. We'll center it so that we get a pretty even border, and I think it needs to be trimmed just a little bit on this side. So I'm going to take it over to my guillotine trimmer and just trim that just ever so slightly. Be off camera for just a second here. Okay, that's a little bit more even there. So look at that shaker. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now we're going to punch a hole. Again, we'll bring back our crocodile and we'll punch that through here. Just eyeball it. Get it relatively straight, or centered, sorry. And then this time, I am going to use some of this really pretty fresh freesia seam binding. And this, I believe, this is, at the time of filming this video, I think I saw this on sale. It was an item that you could earn for free during celebration in January of 2025. And then for the month of August 2025, Stampin' Up! Has brought back some of those celebration items for you to purchase as a last chance items. And I believe I saw that on there. So you can check that out and see if it's available. Otherwise, you can use any fresh freesia ribbon or even white ribbon if you want to color it with your Stampin' Blends to turn it into fresh freesia, or any other coordinating ribbon works as well. All right, so now we're going to take this. We are going to add some twine to the back, or some linen thread, sorry, to the back of this. Now, because we're not adding a circle to this one, we're going to add this right onto the background. I am actually going to add my seal to the back of this. And look how pretty this looks even on the back of that. Like those blends bleeding through like that. So pretty. Okay, so we're going to do that figure 8. So just like we did on the last one, but I'm just doing that on the back of this floral piece instead. And you know what? We're going to, here's a little trick. If you find that it's so curly like this, what you can do is you can take your bone folder and just straighten it out. Just run it down like that, and then it's not so curly. It's a little bit easier to work with. Sometimes I prefer that look, especially when I'm working with a bigger image like this. I find it a little bit easier to have a little bit more control. So we're just doing a few loops here. Okay, and then we'll trim that there. And we're going to add some dimensionals to the back of this. And I've got some mini dimensionals here. So these are pretty small. This is a pretty big image. I'm just going to cut up the sides and use some of these. And we're going to be pretty generous because this is going to sit on top of the plastic. So I just want to make sure it really sticks. Okay. And then I went ahead and I die cut the 2 leaf images from the coordinating dies. So let me pull those back in and show you. So I cut them from navy cardstock, this one here and this one here. So I cut those out and we're going to add these on here. So this is going to go on here. I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue. This will take a little bit longer to set, this liquid glue on top of plastic, because obviously the plastic is not porous. It will dry. It'll just take a little longer. Okay. And our dimensionals here will help hold it in place as well. Okay, and then we're just going to put this on here. So that needs to go about there. We'll add a little bit of multi-purpose glue to the back of this one. Pop that on there like that. We'll peel off the backing here. And then position this. Look how pretty this is. So because this is a larger image, I decided to use the more muted pattern rather than the busy pattern and not add a shape in behind like we did the last one. All right, so we've got that. So now we can just add a greeting. So this, I can add it across like this, but I want it on 2 lines. So I'm just going to trim around like that and then trim this down, just clean this bit up. So I've got it in 2 words. And I don't know if my tear and tape will work there. We'll use some mini glue dots for this. Okay, so I'll just add a couple mini glue dots on here. We'll add the happy. And then the birthday. And be sure to stick around until the end because I got some extra projects to share with you using this beautiful collection. And then we'll add that on there. And look at that. We've got this beautiful shaker tag. Isn't it pretty? So pretty. So I wanted to share a different color combo. So this one is exactly the same apart from the colors. And I also changed out the shaker. Well, I guess I can't say it's exactly the same because the ribbon is changed out as well. But here it is with some blue and purple shaker content. Here it is with some gold. And then here is the other card that we create, or the other tag that we created here. And then the backs look like this. And then like that. Super cute and such a fun project. So here is how I would use it. So I've got this smaller size craft gift bag that I just picked up from Dollarama. I would just use a little mini clothespin and just clip that on there. And then you've got your message that you can write on the tag and then your gift inside. And such a cute little project. And what a wow, hey? And it was so simple to make. All right. So that is today's project. And then if you're looking for some more inspiration using that, remember at the beginning of the video, I shared that I had used up the 2 sheets of my favorite pattern paper. That's this one here. So about a week ago, I shared this fun One Sheet Wonder folio with you, and I used this DSP. So I will link to where that is, where you can find this and learn how to make it. So this is a One Sheet Wonder folio using that same collection. And it's so pretty. I just love this folio. I could see making a bunch of these with Christmas pattern paper. So that's another idea using this collection. This is another card that I shared. Just kind of a fun fold. This uses a different pattern paper from that same collection. And then Laura Milligan and I, we do a class to go every month. And these are 3 of the 6 cards that we'll be making in this month's class to go featuring this collection. So I will also link to where you can find all the information if you want to participate in that class to go. There is an option for the tutorial, or if you want the pre-cut card kits and the supplies, there is an option for that as well. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button, and if you are not yet a subscriber, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day. Take care.